want to do a couple of videos that are typically not related to my content. But then again, though, given the fact that these two films that I'm going to be talking about, this one right here being Napoleon for this video here, and the other one being The Iron Claw, I figured it would probably be a good idea to at least make some recommendations to you guys out there if you did, in fact, want to go see a movie. Now, Napoleon has already left the theaters. Like, I went to go see it the other night, and it was like the final day, the final showing that the film was going to, in fact, be in theaters. At least my theater anyways. But still, a lot of people have already made videos on this, discussing the historical inaccuracies of this film. And of course, a lot of people have panned this film as being absolute garbage. And guess what? They're correct. It is absolute garbage. I'm here not so much to talk about the film as far as it being garbage, even though I will, in fact, go over some of the historical inaccuracies. And I will be going over some of the things that, well, let's just say things that I would have done if making this film. However, I do need to go ahead and get this out here now. The director of this film, Ridley Scott, I think he's still living off of Gladiator. Have you guys noticed that with Ridley Scott? Every time he releases a film, they got to remind you that he directed Gladiator. They got to remind you that he directed Alien, which, of course, the first Alien movie and Gladiator are probably his two best films with, I would say, probably Black Hawk Down. But other than that, though, it seems like he's coasting off of that, and maybe he thinks that that's the reason why it is that he could make a Napoleon film and get away with it. Now, the thing is this here, and in this video, I don't really have too many clips to show you guys while I'm talking because I'm not really a video essay type guy. I'll be doing that starting next year, and film is not really my natural thing to do, but still, I have talked about some films before on this channel, and this right here is going to be another one of those times where I'm going to speak about it. Of course, I'll talk about The Iron Claw tomorrow, seeing how it is that as a wrestling fan, I went to go see that one as well. But still, the thing is this here. This film got panned, I think, for the right reasons. 2023 as a whole was just a bad year for film. I mean, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was absolute crap. I mean, don't get me started on all the crap that was made. However, there was one good movie that was made, and we'll talk more about that one tomorrow. So I want to go and get the bad film out of the way. And of course, Napoleon has so many historical inaccuracies, it's ridiculous. And Ridley Scott even answered to people saying that this film was terrible by simply telling them to go get a life. I understand that Ridley Scott was not trying to make a historical accurate film. I understand that he was trying to make a film that was, I guess, entertaining in his mind, but still, it even falls short in that area there. For example, there were two unnecessary sex scenes, and I wouldn't even call them sex scenes. Now, guys, I cannot show you those sex scenes, but I personally thought the sex scenes that were shown were absolutely hilarious. I actually think it's very possible that it may have been designed to make fun of Napoleon the man. Now, Napoleon Bonaparte is a phenomenal figure in history. Possibly the greatest general that ever lived, the military campaigns, the Battle of Austerlitz, you had Friedland, you had the Italian campaign, the Egyptian campaign, and of course, we all know about the failure, which was the Russian invasion or the retreat. Many people also view that as the death knell of his actual empire, but in reality, after Russia was over with, Napoleon was actually able to re-raise an army. While it was raw, the true end to Napoleon was not Russia, it was actually the Battle of Leipzig. Now, I don't know if I was very clear at the very beginning, but I'll be very, very clear now. This right here is not really a historical review, but there are going to be some historical inaccuracies that will be pointed out because a lot of people watch films like this and automatically assume that this right here is historically accurate, when in reality it is not. They walk out of the theater thinking that it is. And the only other people who were in the theater with me actually walked out 30 minutes before the film ended. That's how bad it was. I only went to go watch it so that way I could actually talk about it and make a video on it. And it was, in fact, as I've said before, that bad.
See it? I'll run this by a couple of people who have watched the movie, and I'm sure they'll agree that it's quite accurate. So, enjoy, I guess.
New in my hair. Okay, come here.
bit weirder than the chicken commercial, if you remember that.
Two unnecessary sex scenes. Now, guys, some of the clips that I did get, I borrowed from a channel called Despot of Etrim. I will leave the link to his channel in the description box. But I also got this little bit from a guy named History Knows Everything, or History of Everything. Yeah, this right here is a broad description of one of those scenes, and I'll explain a little bit further on the other end and explain to you how it was that this film completely and totally missed the mark. He's referring to one of the scenes between Napoleon and his wife Josephine, first wife Josephine. It was a sex scene that, quite frankly, just made no sense. It was literally like, I really don't know how to describe it. It's like a fish out of water just flopping around. They were completely unnecessary, served no use to the plot. It made absolutely no sense. It probably shouldn't even been there. It's almost as if to say Ridley Scott was trying to make fun of Napoleon. And don't even get me started on Joaquin Phoenix's performance. Joaquin Phoenix, by the way, is a pretty good actor for certain type roles. He's probably best suited for roles like he played in the film Joker, but for a historical piece like this right here, it was obviously terrible. So what was wrong with this film? Well, for starters, the Battle of Austerlitz, he tried to play it up as this sequence where he just killed people by firing cannons through the ice, and a bunch of people died. In reality, that's not really what happened at the Battle of Austerlitz. Only 2 soldiers died, and they found that out the day after they had actually won the battle. The scene was also very quick in its actual cuts. It seemed like it went too fast. It suffered from extremely poor editing. They also, at the exact same time, went out of their way to just jit right through, like just fast forward through each sequence. For example, during the section involving Russia, the actual invasion of Russia, we get to the Battle of Borodino. It lasts literally 2 seconds, and it has Napoleon riding towards the Russians. If you're familiar with the Battle of Borodino, then you would know that Napoleon never hopped on a horse and actually rode towards the enemy. Never happened. Napoleon was actually historically terrible. Historically is probably not the right word here. He was notoriously terrible when it came to horses, and he never rode into combat at all. I'm sure he took a horse, of course, to travel, but of course he never actually rode into combat. Also, something else too about the Battle of Borodino, they had those redoubts and they had the flesh and all that stuff there. A lot of battle formations, stuff that would set up, and also something else too. There were no trenches, as in like there was no trench warfare at Waterloo. There was no trench warfare at Austerlitz. There was no trench warfare at all at that time frame. Ridley Scott really and truly missed the mark with this film. It was god-awful. It was absolutely terrible. But I do need to say this right here, though, before I go any further. Before I get to what I would have actually done when it came to this film. Ridley Scott, a while back, made a film most of you guys may have heard of called Kingdom of Heaven. The film missed the mark when it came to the critics. The film also missed the mark when it came to audiences. Now, a lot of people don't want to, how do I say this? You guys have ever seen a movie or ever been hyped to watch a film? The critics have told you it was really good. They've promoted it very, very well. Then you get to the theater, you watch the film. And of course, when you leave the theater, you leave with a very empty feeling. Like the film just wasn't any good. That's where the audience score comes into play on Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic. The reason why is because the audience score should tell you exactly if a film is good or not. Now, like I said, I already knew this film was probably going to be bad, but I went ahead and went anyway, so that way I could do a video on it. And it was so bad of a video that it's actually making this video right here a lot worse. The film was actually unintentionally funny from time to time, but then again, it could have been intentionally funny to make fun of Napoleon himself, whom, you guys can, talk about his politics, claim he's a madman, whatever, but still, the man was an absolute military genius, and there was a lot of life to cover. But the thing I was going to say about Kingdom of Heaven was Kingdom of Heaven had the exact same problem, except Napoleon was obviously way worse. Kingdom of Heaven had an uncut version, roughly about 30 to 45 minutes worth more stuff. It's actually better than the original cut. This particular film here, Ridley Scott has announced that there's actually a 4-hour-long rough cut or a 4-hour-long work cut of the film that's going to be released on Apple TV, I think sometime next year, maybe next month. It makes you think that maybe you should just go ahead and release the 4-hour-long cut if you're trying to make a good movie. But then again, though, I don't even know if this film here was savable through the 4-hour cut. So just go ahead and know that the vast majority of the complaints about this particular movie are in fact valid. Toulon, that sequence there too. A lot of stuff just didn't make any sense. So just go ahead and know that if you do watch this film, even if you watch it on Apple TV, just go ahead and know right now that this film is in fact historically inaccurate. Now, with that right there being said, let me go ahead and tell you how I would have approached this. It actually starts with a scene from the French Revolution, that right there being Marie Antoinette being beheaded. The problem is that Napoleon was never at that particular event. Napoleon was probably, fighting against the forces that were trying to come into France at the time of the French Revolution. During the Revolution, there was, let's just say that everybody in the whole world wanted to take advantage of France being in total and utter chaos. And of course, the French Revolution went on for a very long time. We may cover that in a video in the future, especially when you start getting to stuff like what America's future really and truly is. But the thing is this here, what I probably would have done was started the film actually at Toulon and then gone to montage as far as like going back like in voiceover, explaining what was going on in France at the time, and then cutting to Napoleon actually meeting with those in charge in Paris at the time. From there, I probably would have focused. There wasn't really that much focus. I mean, it looked like it was trying to focus more on his relationship with his first wife, Josephine. And of course, Vanessa Kirby, she does in fact carry this film. She's really the only decent part of this movie. They did this, and I don't blame them for focusing in on that section there, but Napoleon did not just leave the Egyptian campaign because he heard that she had an affair. That's not how it worked. He really left because he couldn't invade Syria, or in the process of trying to invade, let's just say things just did not work out the way Napoleon wanted. Look, I'm no historian. I have an understanding of Napoleonic history and the Napoleonic Wars, but I advise you get to a straight up, actual, honest to God historian for a full historical breakdown. But what I would have done was I probably would have focused in on Egypt and Italy through a montage form. There's one section of the film where he just says, "I took Italy without a fight." That's not how it went. All right, there was actual fights there. What I probably would have done was the first hour of the film, tried to put some of his battles and whatnot in a montage form, at least through the Egyptian and Italian campaigns. Then I would have brought it back to him actually becoming the Emperor of France itself. The acting in this film was absolutely terrible. I have no idea why in the world Joaquin Phoenix was even chosen to play Napoleon, especially given that Napoleon would have been in his late 20s and early 30s and even mid-30s during the earlier sections of his conquest. Why it was you couldn't have gotten somebody a little bit younger. Joaquin Phoenix is like 47 or 48 years old, and he didn't exactly capture that spirit of Napoleon, which I didn't expect him to do because it is Joaquin Phoenix, but still at the same time. Something else too about Joaquin Phoenix, the term incel has been used a lot, petulant. I would say that his performance is not so much more of an incel or petulant. I would say he comes off more like he comes off more like a petulant incel. I apologize. I can't find any other words to describe how bad it was. Like, right after he gets the crown, it goes straight to Austerlitz. And it goes through this small mini montage of just useless stuff. Now, I know I said that there was a lot of jump cuts, and there were. What I probably would have done at this point was I would have probably focused on Austerlitz and Friedland back to back, the battles of Austerlitz and Friedland and the Treaty of Tilsit. And I probably would have featured a little bit more of Tsar Alexander going into the actual invasion of Russia. Now, the Spanish ulcer was not really mentioned in this film. I wish it had been at least alluded to. But then again, seeing how it was they treated the Italian campaign as "I took Italy without a fight," it kind of doesn't surprise me that Spain was not mentioned. Nor was Leipzig. Nor was Napoleon's endgame of defending France at the very end. Basically, what I'm saying is that going into the invasion of Russia, which, by the way, would have been probably the biggest battle section of the film that I would have made, there would have been a heavier focus on Borodino, and there would have been a much, much heavier focus on the retreat itself, including even the Berezina, where they tried to escape, and they basically got attacked by the Russians while they were on the retreat. Now, after the Russian campaign, it basically just shows him going ahead and abdicating, which, of course, is not historically accurate. What really happened was that after he got back from Russia, his second wife, Maria Theresa, had basically basically rebuilt his army with the remaining portions of the French youth. And eventually they were carried into the Battle of Leipzig, the Battle of Nations, which is really where Napoleon's army or Napoleon's final run fully collapsed. That's where it really and truly happened. And then after that, he goes back to France. And of course, he has to defend France from the British, the Prussians, the Russians are coming in. Everybody's attacking France at one time. And of course, Spain is completely collapsed. And at that point in time, then from there, he was banished to Elba. And then eventually he would return from Elba. And of course, he would get the Battle of Waterloo. I think that if they had gone more so in that direction by at least mentioning or at least showing bits and pieces, like just show the end of a battle, just something like that. I think if they'd have done that, they'd have gone in a better direction. Truth be told is this here. The PBS, which the PBS, Public Broadcasting Station, they did a 3-part Napoleon miniseries back in like 2002. And I think that they redid it later on for just for the sole purposes. That way it wouldn't look as old and outdated. They did a better job of describing Napoleon's life than this film from Ridley Scott. Okay, that's the actual truth. They did a much, much better job of doing this film than what Ridley Scott did. And I almost mentioned Oliver Stone earlier. When Oliver Stone did the film Alexander, as bad as it was, at least for the most part, it was historically accurate. I understand that historically accurate films typically tend to not be entertaining. But then again, though, you don't want to go full Braveheart when it comes to non-historical accuracy, or else people will literally walk out of the theater thinking that this right here is how it really and truly happened. Truth be told is this film here was an absolute abomination. And it could have been done better in so many different directions. Like I said, you could have montaged Egypt and Italy both. You could have then focused in on Austerlitz, maybe an 11-minute fight sequence, cut to some minutia in the middle, then gone straight to the Battle of Friedland, and then gone to the Treaty of Tilsit. That right there alone could have taken about maybe 25 minutes total of overall film footage. You could have focused in on the preparations and how we got to what it was that was the invasion of Russia to come. You could have done that right there in a 15-minute montage to get to the Battle of Borodino. Actually had like a good 10-minute fight sequence. The march into Moscow, 10, 15 minutes. Retreat back. Obviously, things have gone to hell. Moscow's been burnt to the ground. Got to the Brezhnev. I think you could have done a lot better. Fact of the matter is that Ridley Scott has been coasting off the film Gladiator for the better part of, over 20 years. And obviously he thinks that that right there gives him everything he needs when it comes to critic praise. Still, though, at the same time, just because you got praise for one good film does not give you an excuse to make crappy films for the rest of your career. With that right there being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and halt this review now. This is just my personal thoughts. I would not even waste time renting this film if it ever came on Amazon Prime. Do yourself a favor and just completely skip that one. Also, something else, too, this is why historical accuracy in films, for the most part, is, in fact, needed. I understand creative liberties. I understand creating something entertaining, but this right here missed the mark in every single way. It was absolutely ridiculous. With that right there being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and halt this video now. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section. Would love to get you guys' thoughts, and I'll see you guys later.